You've been investigating PD-1 pathway, the PD-1 pathway, checkpoint inhibition. It's kind of big news, isn't it? And you've been using nivolumab. Can you tell me what you were doing and which disease context, first of all?
Right. So this was a phase 1 study of nivolumab. The study itself enrolled patients with a number of hematologic malignancies, Hodgkin lymphoma, non-Hodgkin lymphoma, myeloma. This particular presentation, this work focused on the Hodgkin lymphoma subgroup of 23 patients. The reason that Hodgkin lymphoma was included in this study was based on scientific work that was done a few years ago, mostly in Dr. Shipp's lab at Dana-Farber, which showed that Hodgkin lymphoma we've known for a long time, seems to attract immune cells which surround the malignant Reed-Sternberg cells and somehow impair their function because it survives in the host despite this brisk immune infiltrate around it. So many of us have wondered for a long time what it was about Hodgkin lymphoma that allowed it to control the immune response against it. And what the work from Dr. Shipp and her colleagues showed a few years ago is that Hodgkin lymphoma frequently had a genetic abnormality, amplification of genetic material at the 9p24 locus, which results in overexpression of the PD-1 ligands, PD-L1 and PD-L2. So this, and there are other reasons why the PD-1 ligands get overexpressed in Hodgkin lymphoma, but leads to the thought that Hodgkin lymphoma may have this genetically determined dependence on PD-1 for survival.
Right now, PD-1 has been a crucial target in solid tumours, hasn't it? So there's some track record in this.
Correct. And so the original intent of this work was to bring PD-1 blockade to the hematologic malignancies based on the astonishing results in the solid tumors. But there is something unique about Hodgkin lymphoma, and that is, again, this genetic background which doesn't exist for solid tumors. There's no other tumor that we know of as of yet that has a genetically programmed dependence on PD-1 the way Hodgkin lymphoma seems to have. And that was the reason why Hodgkin lymphoma patients were enrolled on these studies as separate expansion arms.
Right, so what did you do? The patients you chose and how did you treat them?
So those were patients with relapse refractory Hodgkin lymphoma, and they were quite heavily pretreated, patients with advanced disease, and they were treated with nivolumab, so a single agent monoclonal antibody therapy against PD-1.
And what happened?
And what happened is many of them responded. Actually, all of them had some reduction in their tumor as their best response, and the response rate in this population was 87%. 17% of patients achieved a complete remission, 70% a partial remission, and it seems, even though the follow-up is still short, that the responses can be durable. We've had responses over 1 year, and most of the responses happen early.
Now, big claims are starting to be made of this, but this is quite a small study, isn't it?
Correct, correct. So I'm not making any big claims, but I'm the first to say that these results need to be confirmed and expanded. But you now have 2 studies of PD-1 blockade in Hodgkin lymphoma, the one from nivolumab, the one from pembrolizumab, both showing extremely encouraging response rates in very heavily pretreated patients. And so I think the results are here to stay. Where this drug will fit in the management of patients, what it can be combined with, how early we can move it up, those questions remain to be answered.
What about toxicities, for example?
So the safety profile overall of nivolumab is something that we know quite well because it's been used so extensively in solid tumors. And I think what we can say from those studies, it seems like the toxicity profile is similar in hematologic malignancies, which is overall quite good, especially compared to chemotherapy. So there was no, on this particular study, there were no drug-related fatal events, no drug-related grade 4 life-threatening events, and the severe events, for the most part, were manageable.
Right, so what should happen now?
Well, we obviously have much to learn on many fronts. Those findings are being extended in a large phase 2 study of nivolumab that's now ongoing. And the interest is in moving it earlier in the treatment course of patients, using it in combination with other treatments, learning if there are patients, the patients who do not respond, why they don't respond, what's the biology behind absence of response, or what's the biology behind progression for patients who lose their response, and how do we target that to increase further the response rate and its duration.
What would you say doctors can learn from your findings so far?
I think at this point, what I would say is it means PD-1 blockade is a very promising treatment for patients with classical Hodgkin lymphoma, and with further work, I hope, can really become an important part of the treatment arsenal against this disease.
So what's the take-home message for doctors as far as treating their own patients might be concerned?
Well, all the treatments are still done on clinical trial. This drug does not have FDA approval for treating Hodgkin lymphoma at this point. What the FDA gave on the basis of those results is breakthrough designation. So it'll be a little while before the drug is FDA approved or before doctors can use this in clinic to treat their patients. And it may be a little early to do that, but certainly to encourage participation in clinical trial with those drugs so that we can learn more about it and hopefully reach more patients.